Test, test, test. How we doing?
Good!
Let's try that again. I heard two people. How we doing?
Good!
There was only 4 in the fire. All right. So what the moment you've all been waiting for. I know that y'all came here just for my jokes. Right? Is this turned up? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The first one's about a cowboy and a preacher. One Sunday, a cowboy went to church. When he entered, he saw that he and the preacher were the only ones present. The preacher asked the cowboy if he wanted him to go ahead and preach. The cowboy replied, "I'm not too smart, but if I went to feed my cattle and only one showed up, I'd feed him." So the minister begins his sermon. 1 hour passed, then 2 hours, then 2.5 hours. The preacher finally finished and came down to ask the cowboy how he liked the sermon. The cowboy again replied slowly and loudly, "Well, I'm not very smart, but if I went to feed my cattle and only one showed up, I sure wouldn't feed him all the hay." Next one's my favorite of the two. I need my water. Please and thanks. Now. All right, this one's called One Small Mistake. The Gallaghers, a couple from Minneapolis, decided to go to Florida during the icy winter. They planned to stay at the same hotel where they spent their honeymoon 20 years earlier. Both husband and wife had hectic schedules, and it was difficult to coordinate their travel schedules. The husband left Minnesota and flew to Florida on Thursday, while his wife planned to fly down the day after. Mr. Gallagher checked in the hotel and decided to send an email to his wife. However, in typing, he accidentally left out one letter in her email address. Without realizing his error, he sent the email. Meanwhile, in Houston, Texas, a different Gallagher, a widow, returned home from her husband's funeral. He had been a minister of many years, called home to glory following a sudden heart attack. The widow decided to check her email, expecting messages from relatives and friends. After the first message, she fainted. It read, "To my loving wife," subject titled, "I've arrived. I know you're surprised to hear from me. It is amazing. They have computers here now. You can send emails to loved ones. I've just arrived and been checked in. Everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you then. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine. Love, Harry. P.S. It sure is hot down here." So speaking of places that are hot, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I told Caroline that I should have brought a smoke machine. However, the message is about no smoke. I don't promise to get you out of here on time for KFC, but Denny's is open 24 hours. We're going to start with Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, administrators, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, and magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre, and symphony, with all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So this is very similar to what we have going on in the world today. We've got social media, we've got TikTok, Facebook, we've got people that influence us. We see all these new trends. Some of them are stupid, like Tide Pods. I don't know who eats Tide Pods, but they got a few million people to do it, I guess. Whatever. But the point is that the world is constantly putting these new golden statues into our lives and demanding that we bow down to them. And more often than we realize, we do. Right? We're not carving out golden statues, real golden statues, so to speak. But if you're spending more time on Facebook than you are in prayer, maybe your statue's made of something different. It's just not gold. Right? So this takes us all the way back to Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 4. And this is, if you're not familiar with it, the Ten Commandments. So God is speaking to Moses and having the Ten Commandments inscribed on the tablets. He says, first and foremost, you shall have no other gods before me. He says, you shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. So, our first and second commandment specifically instruct against worshiping anything but God. Right? But here they are. In Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar has made this great golden statue. It's massively tall. It's carved out of gold. And all his politicians demand that everyone, everywhere, bow down to it. Right? So let's fast forward from Exodus 23 through 4 to Exodus 32. And find out what the results are when we disobey. Now, when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered to Aaron and said to him, come, make us gods that shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And Aaron said to them, break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. He received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. Then they said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. So when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. Then they rose early on the next day, offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. How quickly we can forget the Egypt that God has brought us out of. How quickly we can give the glory to a golden statue or even to ourselves. Right? I try my very best not to take credit for anything. Anything that I do or anything good that I have comes from God. Period, point blank. Because I've got 30 plus years of wreckage behind me. So I know what I can do. I'm in recovery. I've got bad relationships, unhealthy relationships, all kinds of stupid stuff in my past, and it's all because I chose to do things. Right? When we decide that we want to have a golden calf because God's not showing up or God's not sending his message fast enough, those are the results. Right? In case you're not familiar, the Babylonian Empire fell very hardly. They might have had a lot of power, they might have had a lot of gold, but they didn't have enough God. So, as we just read in Exodus 32, Aaron bows to the pressures of the people and builds the golden calf. We have to remain obedient to God no matter what the people around us are demanding. No matter what social media demands, no matter what the politicians demand, no matter what your friends demand, no matter what your family demands, we must stay obedient to God. So the results are in Exodus 32, 7 through 11. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go, get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation.' Then Moses pleaded with the Lord his God and said, 'Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand?'" Right? So his first commandment is that there's no other gods. Right? And just like the Israelites, we build our own little gods and put them on these pedestals and then ask God, "Why are you so upset? Why am I going through this?" Not everything that we go through in life is because of the devil. He can't read your mind. He can't be everywhere at once. He's not that big a problem. We are the problem. Your car breaks down on the side of the highway and you blame the devil, but have you changed the oil in the last 3 years? You blame the devil for a flat tire, but you didn't watch where you parked. Right? The Israelites had zero justifications to worry or create or bow down to a man-made God. They had literally just been delivered from the enslavements of Pharaoh, just long enough for them to start creating their own enslavements. Right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are facing death by fire if they do not bow down. Right? So back to Daniel 3, verse 8. "Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, 'O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery and symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up.' Then King Nebuchadnezzar, in a rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. King Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, 'Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now if you are ready at the time that you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, and symphony with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made, then good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands, says the king.'" So, that's the threat. We've all got threats that we face daily, especially kids. We were talking last week about the peer pressures that kids are facing when they have social media too early. You know, things like being not even a teenager yet and contemplating taking their own lives. We should not be at that point, right? Absolutely should not. The Bible tells us to train up a child in the way they should go, and they shall not depart from it. But are we training the children up in the way they should go? So, we've got the threat, and here's the response. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king." Here's the lesson, though. "But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up." So they are faced with death by fire. right? Some of us cave to the pressure of bowing down to whatever these little influencers are doing, or to the peer pressures of our friends or our circle or our family, right? Or maybe our followers or whatever it is. Bow down to the peer pressures of our own children, spouses, whatever's going on. These three men are faced with death by fire. I don't know about you, but when I go, I hope it's not in a burning fire. Ouch. If the last thing I experience before going to heaven resembles hell, it might be painful. Right? So, Daniel 3:19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it is usually heated. Now, mind you, the furnace is heated up, like we said, 7 times hotter than normal. I don't know about you, but if a human being gets thrown into a fire furnace, the lit fire is good enough. I don't think we need to turn up the heat. They're probably going to die, right? But remember, they said, even if God doesn't deliver us, we're still not going to bow down, right? So it goes on, and he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So the men that threw them into the fire were killed by the fire. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished. He rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king. Look," he answered, "I see 4 men, loose, walking around in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." I like to imagine them in there dancing. Like, I don't know about just walking laps in a burning furnace, but if God's in there with me, might as well have a praise party, right? They were willing to go in whether he showed up or not. Your pain can have, and if you love God, will have a purpose. Your trial can be a testimony. Every one of us will be faced with trials. Every one of us will be faced with our own fiery furnace, right? And the more times that we walk into that furnace, I'm a firm believer, the more times the heat will get increased. It doesn't just get turned down, right? So in Daniel chapter 3:26, then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the midst of the fire, and the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men, on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. No smoke. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own." Right? So all the way over in Romans chapter 8:28, God gives us a little glimpse of what we have to look forward to, knowing that we're going to go through some tough stuff. He says, "We know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose." Right? So by saying even if God doesn't deliver us, we still will not bow down to your God because we serve the God. That sounds like love to me. So God not only protected them, but as the story goes on, in verse 29, we see that God did in fact use that for their good and for his glory. It says, "Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made in ashy, because there is no other God who can deliver like this." So not only did they get thrown into the fire, not only did they get back out without being singed, with the smell of no smoke, but the king of one of the most powerful empires on the planet at that time declared that there is no other God that can do that. Right? So maybe he was the only one whose heart was changed, maybe not. But in my opinion, everything that I've been through in life, even though they were my choices, God delivered me from them. And if it will help save one person, that makes it worth it. So when you face the trials that come up, don't give up. Have a praise party instead. Even if you still have to enter the furnace, here's the question: will you still praise and worship him? Will you still give him glory? Will you still love him, despite whether you know or not, if he will or will not deliver you? Can you start that last song, Tina? As we open up the altar and close out the service, are you willing to walk into the fire even if there's no guarantee? If you need prayer or if you haven't accepted Christ yet, the altar is open and we'd love to pray with you.